Hello, this is my January wrap up, and I'm going to share with you the books that I read this month. By Stephen Graham Jones, Mapping the Interior is a short novella that I got from the library. I really enjoyed this one. This is about a young boy who was with his mother and younger sibling, and they had lost their father in a drowning accident. And this goes into coping with that loss. And also, this boy sleepwalks. So he's sleepwalking in their trailer, and he senses what he thinks is his dad. So, what he begins doing is trying to sleepwalk to see his dad more and more. And the spirit, the more it's seen and noticed and believed in, starts becoming more in touch with the realm, the physical realm. So this is a very interesting buildup of a story, that's for sure. I think you'll enjoy it. If you enjoy Stephen Graham Jones, you'll enjoy this short novella. I got this one from my local library, and I do recommend it. If you like Stephen Graham Jones, you'll probably like Mapping the Interior. All right, another thing I'm trying to do is get through my collection of Book of the Month Club picks that I ordered last year and that I did not yet get around to reading. So, what I've done is I've put all the ones that I have left on a spinner wheel in an app so I can just spin it and see which book I'm reading next. Right now, I'm reading Immortal Longings. I just started that one. And the other two I read this month is Georgie All Along. It's like a romance, finding yourself, self-discovery, and just figuring out what you want from life. It's a really sweet little book. I did read it fairly quickly, so it does keep your attention as you're reading it. So this is about a girl named Georgie who's a personal assistant to someone famous, and she basically gives all her time and all her energy to that other person. And that other person decides to, get out of the limelight for a bit and, just spend time with their family. So Georgie is now out of a job. So she decides to come home where her parents are away. So she's staying in their house. And it ends up the parents also had already agreed for someone else to stay in their house as well. So it's the Georgie and the brother of one of the guys she had a crush on are awkwardly meeting each other, and they end up you know communicating with each other, and their personalities are quite different, but this is just the journey of their relationship, but also the relationship of Georgie and how she's coming to know who she is and what she wants and figuring things out for herself, because she spent so much of her time focused on the person that she was the assistant to, that she never really took time to look inward of what she wanted out of life. So it's a really sweet story, and it's a really nice romance as well. So if you like romance and you want a cute book, I mean, the cover is adorable. This one is good. And the other book club pick that I read this month is Lisa C's Lady Tan's Circle of Women. This was a historical fiction, but based on a real person. So, Lady Tan, she was born into a family of physicians. So, her grandmother and her grandfather both are physicians. And so, this is going through the history of her time as a child and then growing up. And she was one of the first, or maybe the first, I don't quote me on that, published like women's doctor, um, at least in China. And this takes place during, I would like to tell you the years it took place in, but I'm not sure. I think, okay, so it starts in 1469. So it's during her timeline, starting at that time. Um, it talks a lot about foot binding and the foot binding ceremonies. So it's a little bit disturbing in that regard. But it really opened my eyes to like more details, because of course you know about it and you hear about it, but I actually went on Wikipedia and really read about it and some of the history in it, And it is heartbreaking. And, you know, for so many hundreds and hundreds of years that this was happening to pretty much, at first, um, the higher class women, and then later on, just all the girls. So this is a very interesting read. I really enjoyed it. I learned a lot of history from this book. And I don't normally read a lot of historical fiction, but I did really enjoy this one. So maybe I will try to read some more. I know Lisa C has a lot of other books too that take place in China. I'm not sure during what time frames she does. I know she does a lot of historical fiction. Okay. The next one that I read was The Fury. And this is the first book I read from this author, and I really liked it a lot. It is I guess you would say it's a closed room, or in this case, a closed island murder mystery. However, it's more than that. Like how do I even describe it? So there is a woman who's a celebrity, and this is her story of how she takes some of her closest friends and her boyfriend and her son to this island. It's a private island that she owns, and what happens on this island. So you learn a lot about it, but the narrator this is narrated by one person. And so you can tell right away that this person is an unreliable narrator, and that this person has some sort of streak to them that you can't quite place, you can't quite pinpoint, but you know it's uncomfortable. And which makes this book very interesting because you have an idea of where it's going, but it takes you along other journeys as well. I really enjoyed it a lot. I read it straight through. It was hard to put down, and I'm definitely looking forward to picking up his other books. I can't remember what they're named. I know that one is called like The Silent Patient, and I can't remember the other name, but I will definitely read from this author again. I really enjoyed this one. All right, the next one I read is a Stephen King book called Billy Summers. This one is a fairly long read. It's a different kind of Stephen King read than what I'm used to. This basically follows the story of Billy Summers, who is basically an assassin for hire, but he only kills what he deems to be really, really bad guys. So this is just his story of what he hopes to be his final job, and it goes into the people that he meets. He also goes into like writing his past story, so you get a lot of what he's gone through in the past and his growing up, his childhood, his days in the army, and how he got into becoming an assassin for hire. And this is his journey, his story. I gave it probably about 3.5 stars. I did like it, but it's not really I don't know. It wasn't totally what I normally read. So if you like Stephen King, keep in mind this is not like one of his normal horrors. However, one interesting little Easter egg that was in here is it does mention the Overlook Hotel, which is quite interesting. Another book I actually finished this month, I had started it already, is this one, Babel by R.F. Kuang. This one, it took me a little bit to get through. I really liked it. It's like an academic historical fiction, and it's about this place called Babel, and where they take children from all over different places in the world, and they teach them how to work with silver. Because in this world, silver has properties to it that when different linguistics are put onto the silver, they can do things, the silver. So it can help keep things running smoothly. It can heal in some cases. But what they need is translators from many different languages. And this is a really in-depth historical about, language, but then it also has this almost like a fantasy sci-fi, not sci-fi, but fantasy feel to it as well, because you're in a different world that works differently than what we're in, yet you're in the same world with many of the same issues and social problems that this brings out. I loved it. It was good. It wasn't a fast read. It took me a lot of mental, like, to really read it. I had to really focus on it. It was detailed and a bit more um, wordy and descriptive, but I really enjoyed it. I do love this author though, so I read almost everything she's put out. I think I'm missing the third in the Poppy Wars trilogy. I need to read that one. So, Babel. Some of the other things I read were not in physical um, thing, not in a physical copy. So I listened to the audiobook of Being Henry, which is the history of Henry Winkler and his time being the Fonz. It was a great listen. It was interesting to get to know him. I really enjoy listening to autobiographies that are, what do you call it, narrated by the author. You know, because you recognize their voice from things, so it's nice to hear them talking. That one was a very sweet read. Like, I got to know more about him as a child. I used to watch Happy Days, and we all know who the Fonz is, of course, even if you haven't watched it. And he tells the story of, you know, his different works and how he met his wife and his love of dogs and gardening and his children. And it's a very nice read. The other thing I read is Volume 3 of Confessions of a Shy Baker. That one, again, I love it. I just love how sweet this couple is and how he bakes for his, you know, his partner. And it has the recipes in it, which I haven't tried any of them, and I really want to. So I have to figure out how to get like a physical copy of these. I did check them out from the library, and I read them on my iPad. The other book I listened to is The Mystery Guest, which is part 2 in the Maid series of Molly the Maid series. And again, she's just a sweet voice. I loved the first book. Molly has such a beautiful personality and an interesting characteristic. And the way that I listened to it on audio, and the way that it's read is so well done. Another book I listened to on audio, which I kind of wish I had a physical copy of to read, and I probably will read it again, is Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. And I know this one has been getting a lot of, you know, traction, and a lot of people really loved it. And there's a second book coming out, and I also really liked it, but I think I would have enjoyed it more in a physical copy and reading it. So when the second one comes out, I'm kind of hoping I can get both of them into my library physically, so that I can read them in, you know, in form. Plus, the covers are beautiful, and I know that there's copies of these books that are just gorgeous that I've been seeing online, but we'll see. Let's see, what else? Oh, Demon Copperhead. I also listened to that one as well, and that is, I think it's a retelling of like David Copperfield in a modern time, and it takes place, well, I guess it takes place during like the 70s, 80s, 90s as this kid is growing up. Um, and I did like it. It said a lot about um, basically economic class and where you are on the economic scale and how that affects your life and the care that you receive. It has a lot, you know, like the narrator is Demon Copperhead, who is telling his story of his childhood, his growing up, all the people that come into his life, foster care, the foster care families he's with, the kids that he gets to know, and, you know, the families that take him in, and the jobs he gets and the trouble he gets into. And it's, you know, it's sad in many ways, but the narration at the end, I feel like the story just goes a little bit, even though it's a long book, I feel like the end part just goes a little bit too quickly, just kind of wraps everything up. And you don't really see some of the pain that, you know, he would have gone through when some of those things happened towards the end. But all in all, yes, I did enjoy it. I liked it. I wouldn't mind having my own copy in my library, just to, you know, again, some of these that when you listen to by audio, Some of them you really want to read, like physically. For example, the next one, which was my first read of January, which was Out There Screaming, which is an anthology of horror stories. And I listened to this one, and again, I really want my own copy to be able to go through and see the short stories, because I can't even tell you like which ones were my favorite, because I'd like to have a physical copy in my hand to be able to look through the table of contents and go, oh yeah, this story. Oh, and this one I definitely want to read again, etc., etc. But it was really good. I really enjoyed it. I read that one for a book club. I believe it is going to be the February pick, but I had already started it in late December, so I finished it early January. And that one is for the for the book club, literally dead book club. Sorry, my mind went a little blank there. All right, two other books I've read is Leaving Isn't the Hardest Thing by Lauren Hu, and this one, or Hoff, maybe. So this is a book of short essays and stories about how Lauren, she was raised in a cult called the Children of God, and this is the stories, her short essays of just her adapting to life outside of the cult, as as a queer woman who left a cult. So a lack of education and a lack of worldly knowledge, and just getting out there. And she has a great way of writing. It's funny, it's heartbreaking, it's easy to read, and she definitely has a gift for writing these essays. I would definitely recommend this one. And the last one I read so far in January is Sex Cult Nun, and this is by Faith Jones, and she was also a member, was born into and raised in the same cult as Lauren. So these two books are connected in that way. So Faith Jones is actually the granddaughter of the cult leader David Berg, and this is her very heartbreaking and wrenching story. One thing I really like about it is when she tells you her story, she is very good at making you feel how she felt at that time, because it's different when you look back on things. You can be like, oh, that was bad, that was this, that was, you can really analyze it more because you've already lived through it, had time to think about it and process. So I like how as she gets older throughout the book, she has a different viewpoint, especially at the end when she leaves the cult and, becomes a lawyer and makes her a life for herself. So it's very heartbreaking. You're going to read about things that are not pleasant to read about, especially child abuse is going to be a tough one for you if, so this does have a lot of trigger warnings if, so just, but it is a very nice book. In the way that you get to know her and her resilience and how, what a strong person she is to uplift and make a life for herself outside of that. So Sex Cult Nun by Faith Jones. And that is all that I read for the month of January. I still have one day left. So I may finish this book that I'm currently reading called Seven Eves, but it's a long one. It's like 800 plus pages. I am listening to it, and it's like 30, almost 40 hours or something. So we'll see. I'm listening to it slowly and not even on double speed, just listening to it on normal speed because it's a sci-fi book, so I don't want to miss, there's lots of technical details and stuff going on, and, I don't catch it as quickly if I listen to it in faster speed. So that's a slower go on that one. And as I mentioned, the other one I'm listening to is reading is Immortal Longings. Another thing I want to share is I'm so proud of my daughter. She got published in 3 magazines. Her poetry got published in 3 magazines. So I'm just very proud of her, and I just want to brag and share that with you. And yeah, I'm just so proud of her. So yeah, it's a little mom brag. Okay. Thank you so much for joining me, and I hope to share with you more videos. I'm not good at getting them up quickly. I tend to be doing, other things, and I just don't take the time to make a video. So I think what I need to do is just honestly just sit here on my computer in front of a camera and just talk to you, have a good time, and not overthink it and not be like, oh, this needs to be this organized perfectly. I just want to, connect with other book lovers out there, and I'm not trying to get a big subscription base or trying to make money off this thing, that's for sure. I'm just here to connect, to share my love of reading, board games, puzzles, crafting, making quilts, all those things. I just appreciate you all, and thank you so much for, sharing your videos too. I watch a lot of wonderful YouTubers who are out there and doing, wonderful reviews, and many of them have a wonderful way of talking. For me, it's hard for me to put all my thoughts into words and get them out there clearly. And I think that's one reason why I overthink things. Because I'm like, oh, that didn't sound good. I need to really almost study for this. And so I'm trying to get over that. So I just brought down my pile of books that I have read. I think one thing that might be helpful is maybe if I video after I read each book, because then it's fresh in my mind. Because a lot of them, especially like the Out There Screaming one, it was fresh in my mind of which stories I liked the most, but because it was the first book I read in January and I don't have a physical copy, it was hard for me to share those details with you. If you have read it, I'm curious to hear what your favorite short story was from that collection, or if you've read any of the other books I've read, what your thoughts are. Thank you so much. Oh, I did want to, of course I forgot. I went to a tea festival, which was a very fun time. I went with my oldest daughter, Laura. She dressed as a tiefling, which I thought was super cute. I'll have to show you some pictures up here. She dressed as a tiefling, which is kind of like I guess like a fantasy demon-like character. And she had like little tea accessories on her to play with the name tiefling for the tea festival. We got to see a Japanese tea ceremony and a warrior tea ceremony. We also got to see a demonstration of katisuki. I might be saying, no, I'm definitely saying it wrong. I'll have to look it up exactly, and I'll put it down here. And it's the art of the ancient Japanese art of restoring broken ceramics and using the sap of a tree and a little bit of flour and using even like gold powder. And you've probably seen it before, but I got to see some pieces in person, which was amazing, including 1,000-year-old porcelain bowl that had been repaired 1,000 years ago using this method. And it was so interesting. And he went into the history, it was a very short thing there, but he went into the history of it a bit, and how they get the sap from the trees, and sort of like the meaning, because it's more than just repairing a physical object. It's also, it takes time, it takes months to cure one of those things. And it's like, he said it has an internal meaning as well, like our pain and our hurts, how they get mended over time, is not done right away. And it was just a very interesting time. I had a great time. I picked up some delicious teas. So I'm trying to empty out my current tea stash, but I got some great chais. I got some, some cinnamon tea that tastes like really delicious, what do you call those? Spicy hearts, the spicy cinnamon hearts. And I know a lot of people don't like those, but I do. And this tea is delicious. I really like it. So that's what I did this weekend. I finished a quilt as well. And while sewing the back of the binding, I watched a lot of movies because sewing the back of the binding, I used to just sew it with a machine, which of course is very quick, but it doesn't look as nice on the front. So what I did is, for the first time, is I hand sewed the binding onto the back, which is what is suggested when you do a quilt binding. So I did that, and it took me so long because I'm not really great at hand sewing. I watched so many movies. I watched The Exorcist. I watched Napoleon. I watched Sicario. Sorry, Sicario. Yes. And I watched another one too. I can't remember what it was, but anyways, I think I watched 4 or 5 movies, which is how long it took me to do. So the back of the binding, but maybe I'll show you the quilt. If I'll try to take a picture of it. The cat's already been. I didn't even take a picture of it when I finished it because the cat's been sleeping on it. And so it's probably full of cat hair now. Great, but she always finds these little spots that she likes, and she'll stay there like for weeks. Like this is her spot in the house, and then she'll move on and find something else. And right now it's the quilt that I just finished sewing, so I'm not even using it that much because she thinks it's hers. Just kind of adorable. I gotta tell you, I'm gonna take some pictures and put them up here for you. All right. Well, thank you so much, and I hope everyone's looking forward to February. And I am for sure. February is a short month, and it's also my birthday month, and I'm going away to a cottage. So we'll see how much reading I get done in February. Probably not as much as normal, but we shall see, and I shall see you hopefully before the end of February. But we shall see. Okay. Thank you. Bye. I can't reach it.
Are you trying to fix something up?
Be careful.
Oh.
Mom, you're supposed to center
You
it so
should've-
know. Okay, no, Mom,
Mom.
no, Mom.